"Mom says wishes don't work. Can you help mine?" said the little girl to the single-dad CEO at the toy aisle. The late afternoon sun cast a golden haze across the icy parking lot, fading behind clouds heavy with snow. Inside the brightly lit superstore, warmth and color buzzed in contrast to the winter chill. Christmas jingles played softly through the speakers, wrapping the aisles in a festive hum. Lights blinked along shelves, and toy displays stretched in every direction. At the far end of the toy section, surrounded by gadgets, puzzles, and plush animals, a small figure stood motionless. Emma, 5 years old, stood with her mittened hands clasped together, eyes fixed on a single doll on the middle shelf. Her blonde hair was tied in 2 loose pigtails, and her coat looked a size too big. The doll wore a crisp white nurse's uniform. Its name was stitched in soft gold letters, Hope. Emma didn't blink. She didn't reach out. She simply stared, lips slightly parted, trying to memorize every detail of the doll's gentle face. A few steps behind her, Rachel, Emma's mother, watched with tired eyes. Her coat was worn, the collar frayed. Her face, though still lovely, showed the pale weariness of someone who hadn't slept well in weeks. She stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Come on, sweetie," she said softly. "Wishes don't work." Emma didn't move. Her head tilted slightly, still staring at the doll. Rachel tugged her hand again, a bit more firmly. Then Emma spoke, barely above a whisper. "But I didn't wish for the doll." Rachel stopped. "I wished you didn't have to cry every night." The words fell like snow, soft but heavy. Rachel froze, her hand dropping to her side. Her breath hitched. For a second, she looked like she might collapse right there in the aisle. Unbeknownst to them, someone else had heard. Andrew Carter, CEO of one of the nation's largest toy companies, stood on the other side of the shelf, holding a box of racing cars. He had been comparing models for his 7-year-old son when the quiet voice carried over. He stepped around the corner and saw her, Emma, still gazing at the doll, and beside her, a woman visibly shaken. Andrew was known for being composed, efficient, direct, but something in that moment shifted inside him. Maybe it was the way Emma stood so still, asking for nothing, or the way Rachel's face broke for just a second before she caught herself. Emma turned slightly, sensing someone nearby. Her wide eyes met Andrew's. He smiled gently, not wanting to startle her. She took a small step forward, then another. When she reached him, she looked up, not with shyness or expectation, but with something far deeper. "Mom says wishes don't work," she said slowly. Andrew crouched down to her level. "Is that so?" Emma nodded. "Can you help mine?" Her voice held no playfulness, only quiet hope, fragile, uncertain. Andrew blinked, momentarily speechless. He glanced at Rachel, who stood still, watching from a distance. Then he turned back to Emma. "What's your wish?" he asked gently. Emma didn't answer right away. She didn't need to. Her eyes shifted toward her mother, standing beneath the store's bright lights, looking so small and tired. And then, Emma smiled, a soft, knowing smile. Andrew followed her gaze. Something stirred in him, something long buried under years of work, grief, and quiet routines. He looked at Emma again, still kneeling beside her. Overhead, Christmas music played, muffled and sweet. Outside, snow began to fall. And just for a moment, the world paused. Rachel never meant to raise a child alone. There was a time when she stood tall in white student scrubs, her blonde hair tied back in a neat bun, her heart full of purpose. She dreamed of becoming a nurse, not for prestige, but because she wanted to help, to heal. She was halfway through her training when life rerouted her future in one swift, irreversible turn. Pregnant, alone, abandoned. Emma's father had been charming, too charming. Promises of love and support vanished the moment responsibility arrived. By the time Rachel realized she was carrying a life inside her, he was already gone. So was her scholarship. So was the future she had carefully planned. She dropped out. What followed were years of survival, waiting tables by day, cleaning offices at night, babysitting other people's children between shifts. Dreams had no place in her life, only rent, diapers, and second-hand coats. She never complained, even when her hands cracked from chemicals or her feet throbbed after endless hours standing. But something else broke quietly over time. Her belief. She used to believe that effort would be rewarded, that kindness mattered, that wishes worked. But the world taught her otherwise. Too many nights crying alone, too many unanswered applications, too many promises broken by people who walked away without looking back. She learned to protect herself, not just from disappointment, but from hope. Hope hurt. Hope made you expect things that never came. Rachel didn't become bitter, she simply became tired, bone-deep tired. That was why, when Emma stood in the toy aisle staring at the doll, Rachel didn't encourage dreaming. She didn't whisper about Santa or miracles. She said what she believed was truth. Wishes don't work. Not because she wanted to crush her daughter's spirit, but because she wanted to shield it. She couldn't bear to see Emma's eyes dim the way hers had. What Rachel didn't understand, what shattered her later that night, was that Emma hadn't wished for the doll. She hadn't wished for toys or magic. She had wished for her mother, for the tears to stop, for the pain to ease, for one real smile. That evening, Rachel sat on the edge of their narrow bed, the box of instant macaroni untouched on the counter. She rolled a worn bobby pin between her fingers, an anxious habit she'd never shaken. Emma slept beside her, hugging an old stuffed bunny missing one eye. "I'm sorry, baby," Rachel whispered into the darkness. "I'm trying." Across town, in a modern apartment lit by the glow of city lights, Andrew Carter stared at the untouched bourbon in his glass. Reflections danced across the floor, but his eyes were fixed somewhere far beyond the skyline. A framed photo sat beside him, his late wife, Julia, holding their son Lucas as a baby. The edges were worn from being handled too often. It had been nearly 3 years since the accident. A car ran a red light. A rainy Christmas Eve. Andrew had been stuck in a meeting when the call came. Julia didn't survive. Lucas, just 4 years old, lived, with a scar on his forehead and a deeper one no one could see. Andrew buried himself in work after that, built walls out of schedules and spreadsheets. His company thrived, his son was cared for, his calendar stayed full. But something inside him went quiet. Christmas had once been his favorite season. Lights everywhere, cookies and cocoa, pajamas and laughter. After Julia's death, the holidays became something to endure. Lucas stopped asking about Santa. Andrew stopped noticing the decorations. And then there was that little girl in the store. Her voice, her eyes, the way she looked past the doll and toward her mother. "Can you help mine?" The words cracked something open. Andrew looked at the Christmas tree in the corner. Bare, unlit, assembled only because Lucas's teacher insisted routine mattered. He hadn't even plugged it in. He stood, crossed the room, and reached for the cord. The lights flickered on. Warmth filled the space, and Andrew stood there for a long moment, silent, remembering what it felt like to believe again. The checkout line at the store was long, but Andrew didn't mind. He stood still, holding 2 identical boxes in his hands, each containing the same doll, the same kind face in a nurse's uniform, the same stitched name beneath the clear plastic window, Hope. He hadn't planned on buying a doll. He had come for building sets, maybe a racetrack, something for Lucas. But that little girl's voice kept replaying in his mind. "Can you help mine?" He turned the box over in his hands, then again, then nodded to himself. 2 it was. After paying, he slipped the receipt into his coat pocket and walked back into the toy section, where the girl still stood near the end of the aisle. Her mother was a few steps behind, distracted by a clearance bin. Emma was twirling a loose string on her mitten, her small face still looking at the empty shelf where Hope had once sat. Andrew approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. He crouched down beside her again, holding out the box. "Santa might be running late this year," he said gently, "so I thought I'd help him a bit." Emma's eyes widened. She looked at the doll in his hands, then up at him, and then over at her mother. Rachel had turned at that moment, catching sight of the scene. Her brows furrowed as she walked quickly toward them. Sorry, that's kind, but we can't," she began, her voice laced with discomfort. But Emma had already reached for the doll, cradling the box in her arms as though it were made of glass. She held it close, looked up at Andrew, and whispered, "Thank you." Rachel froze. She opened her mouth, then closed it. There was something in her daughter's face, something soft and light she hadn't seen in a long time. Andrew met her eyes, offered a small smile, then turned back to Emma. He knelt again. "Hey," he asked, voice quiet, "what's your wish? Your real one?" Emma looked at him, blinking slowly. She glanced toward her mother, then back again. And then she said it, so softly it nearly disappeared between them. "I want Mom to smile, not the tired smile, but the real one." The words hit Andrew like a wave. For a moment, he could not breathe. It wasn't sadness, exactly. It was something deeper. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. The kind that cuts through walls. He glanced again at Rachel. She was turned slightly away now, pretending to fix Emma's scarf, but her hands trembled. Andrew stood. He gave Emma a small salute, playful but kind. "You know," he said, "that might just be the most important wish in the world." Emma nodded, serious. Andrew turned to go. As he walked away, he looked down at the second doll in his shopping bag, the same one he would give Lucas later that evening. A nurse doll named Hope. He wondered if Lucas would understand the choice. That night, after Lucas had gone to bed, his new doll propped on the pillow, unjudged but curiously examined. Andrew sat at his desk in his home office, staring at his laptop screen. He couldn't stop thinking about Emma's face, about Rachel's silence, about how much could live behind a child's small voice. He opened a new browser tab. He didn't know her last name, but he remembered the name tag on her jacket, R. Taylor, the hospital where she'd said she used to study, the city records. Piece by piece, he started putting it together. Rachel Taylor, former nursing student, single mother, no degree listed, but multiple service jobs. A brief enrollment in a medical training program, dropped suddenly. No other formal employment listed in the last year. His hands hovered over the keyboard. He was a man of numbers, of facts. He did not believe in signs or fairy tales, but there was something about this, about them, that made him pause. He leaned back in his chair, exhaled slowly, and looked toward the corner of the room where Lucas's doll now sat, still in her box, still smiling. Her name read Hope. Andrew Carter wasn't a man who made wishes. But maybe, just maybe, it was time to start helping someone else's come true. The next morning dawned pale and quiet, with a soft dusting of snow resting on every rooftop. The apartment Rachel shared with Emma was still and cold, save for the gentle hum of the old radiator in the corner and the tiny sounds of Emma stirring in her sleep. Rachel wrapped herself in her worn cardigan, sipping coffee from a chipped mug as she stared at the classifieds pinned on the fridge. Half of them were outdated. The other half she had already called. No replies. No callbacks. The phone rang. Rachel blinked, startled. No one called this early. She picked up slowly. "Hello?" A warm female voice greeted her. "Hi, is this Rachel Taylor?" "Yes." "My name is Natalie. I'm calling from East Pines Medical. We have an opening for a part-time medical assistant position, entry level. Someone passed along your name. Would you be interested in coming in for a trial shift?" Rachel paused, her heart thudding. I don't think I applied there. Are you sure?" Yes, your background was recommended to us. We saw you had some nursing coursework. We're looking for someone with a calm demeanor and hands-on experience. Can you come in tomorrow morning?" Rachel barely managed a yes before the call ended. She stood in place, staring at the receiver. She didn't know anyone at East Pines. No one even knew she had once studied to be a nurse. Not anymore. Unless... Her thoughts flashed back to the man from the store. Andrew. Could it have been him? She shook her head. No, it couldn't be. But something had shifted. She felt it. That afternoon, as she and Emma returned from the library, Rachel stopped by their mailbox, expecting the usual stack of ads and unpaid bills. Instead, she found a small box wrapped in brown paper, with no return address. Inside was a neatly packed tin of holiday chocolates and a single folded card. She opened it slowly, confused. The message, written in soft cursive, simply read, "Smiles are contagious. Share one with Emma today." Rachel froze. Her hands trembled as she stared at the words. There was no signature, no clue to who had sent it, just those simple, powerful words. She looked down at the chocolate, then at Emma, who was already bouncing ahead toward their apartment door. Something inside her cracked and then released. Tears welled in her eyes, and before she could stop them, they spilled down her cheeks. Not the quiet tears of exhaustion, but a different kind. The kind that came when someone reminded you mattered. Emma turned back. Her little boots crunched against the snow as she rushed to her mother. "Mommy?" she asked, concerned. "Why are you crying?" Rachel knelt down, trying to wipe her face, but the tears kept coming, this time mixed with the smallest, truest smile. "It's okay, baby," she whispered. "These are good tears." Emma studied her for a moment, then broke into a smile of her own. She wrapped her arms tightly around her mother and whispered, "Your real smile is my Christmas wish." Rachel closed her eyes and held her daughter close, her heart fuller than it had been in years. Somewhere in the distance, a wind chime stirred in the breeze, delicate and light. That night, Rachel tucked Emma into bed and sat beside her until she drifted off. Then she returned to the small kitchen table, opened the job listing again, and smiled. This time, not the tired one. She had no proof, no way to confirm who was behind the call or the card. But in her heart, she knew. Someone had heard her silence and answered it, quietly, kindly, without asking for anything in return. The small clinic on the outskirts of town was far from glamorous. The paint was chipped, the waiting room chairs mismatched. But for Rachel, it felt like the beginning of something new. Each morning, she tied her blonde hair into a neat bun, buttoned her white blouse, and walked through the doors with a purpose she hadn't felt in years. The work was steady, the pace manageable, and the team kind. It wasn't the hospital ward she once dreamed of, but it offered something else, healing in a quieter way. Being needed again felt sacred. She hadn't realized how much she missed that. Late one Thursday afternoon, as the sky outside faded into dusky gold, Rachel was restocking trays at the counter. The clinic had settled into end-of-day calm, filled with quiet voices and the soft hum of lights. She didn't expect to see him. Not here. Andrew walked in alongside a woman in a navy blazer with the Hospital Foundation's logo stitched on her chest. They greeted the clinic director, spoke briefly, then made their way onto the main floor. Rachel looked up and froze. Their eyes met. Her hands paused over a tray of vitamins. Her chest fluttered, nervous and unprepared. Andrew smiled. Not the polished grin of a CEO, but something warmer, gentler. "This place looks better with you in it," he said casually. But his eyes said more. Rachel blinked, offering a half smile before turning back to her task. Her fingers fumbled. Andrew noticed and quietly took joy in it. After the tour, while the foundation rep chatted with the clinic manager near the exit, Andrew lingered by the front desk. "Would you mind some company on your walk home?" he asked. his tone calm. Rachel hesitated, then nodded. Sure. They walked side by side along the snowy sidewalk, breath visible in the winter air. The sun dipped behind the trees, casting long shadows as silence stretched between them. I used to work nights and clean offices during the day, Rachel said, eyes on the ground. Some weeks I barely saw Emma awake. I was afraid she'd forget the sound of my voice. Andrew listened without interruption. I always wanted to go back, she continued, to finish school, but life kept getting in the way. Rent, groceries, everything. He nodded. I get it, feeling stuck in a life you didn't choose. Rachel glanced at him. You, but you're, well, you. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. My wife died on Christmas Eve, drunk driver. She was taking Lucas to see the lights downtown. Rachel stopped walking. Oh, I'm so sorry. She loved the holidays, he said. Lights, cookies, matching pajamas, everything. After she passed, I stopped celebrating. Lucas, he stopped believing. In Santa, in magic. They stood in silence, the snow soft beneath their boots. I don't know what I'm doing half the time, Andrew added. I run a company, but parenting, that's the part I never figured out. Rachel gave a small laugh. Tell me about it. Their laughter faded, leaving a quiet connection. Over the next few days, their paths crossed again, sometimes planned, sometimes not. They began picking up the kids from school together. Rachel came straight from the clinic. Andrew swung by after meetings. Emma and Lucas quickly bonded, two old souls in young bodies, carrying quiet scars. One afternoon, as they walked through a park lightly dusted with snow, Andrew told a ridiculous joke. Something about a snowman and a sunburn. Rachel laughed. Not politely, really laughed. The sound rang out, bright and unfiltered. Emma turned to Lucas and grinned. That's the smile I wished for, she whispered. And in that moment, for the first time in a very long time, Emma believed her wish might actually be working. Life was beginning to feel steady. Rachel had found a rhythm at the clinic. Emma laughed more. The mornings were still early, the pay modest, but there was a lightness in their small apartment now, warmth in the way Emma hummed as she colored, hope in Rachel's steps as she buttoned her blouse each day. But hope, as Rachel knew too well, was fragile. The rumor started quietly. A former colleague of Rachel's, someone who once competed with her for a part-time caregiver position, spotted her at the clinic during a supply drop-off. She also noticed Andrew's name on a donation plaque near the front desk. By that evening, whispers had turned to full-blown accusations. She only got the job because she knows the CEO. Must be nice to have connections. Didn't she drop out of nursing school? How is she even qualified? Rachel sensed the shift before she heard the words. Colleagues who once chatted easily with her now offered polite, clipped nods. Conversations quieted when she entered the break room. Then came the call into the director's office. We just need to clear a few things up, the director had said gently. Due diligence. It's standard. Rachel sat in silence as the words washed over her. Temporary leave, investigation, external pressure. None of it was her fault. And yet, it felt like all of it was. She walked home that afternoon with numb fingers and a hollow ache in her chest. Emma skipped beside her, chatting about the art project they were doing at school. Rachel couldn't respond, couldn't fake a smile. That evening, after Emma fell asleep on the couch, still in her socks, Rachel sat by the window, staring into the dark. Snow fell outside, soft and mocking. She clutched the edge of the table until her knuckles turned white. Then she stood, grabbed her coat, and walked. Andrew opened the door to find her standing in the hallway, her coat soaked from snow, hair damp, eyes hard. You had no right, she said before he could speak. He blinked. Rachel, what's wrong? I didn't ask for favors, she said, voice tight. I worked for that job. I earned it. but now everyone thinks I slept my way into a position I barely even started." Andrew stepped back, stunned. "That's not Rachel. I never told anyone about you. I just recommended someone with potential, that's all." "I didn't need your rescue, Andrew," she snapped. "I needed a fair chance. Not pity, not whispers." He took a step closer, searching her face. "It wasn't pity. I believed in you. That's not your call to make." Her voice cracked at the end, betraying the storm inside her. Andrew's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time in a long time, he had no words, no rebuttal, no defense. He only wanted to help, but in doing so, had he stolen her dignity? Neither of them noticed the small figure standing at the end of the hallway. Emma. She had woken to find her mother gone and wandered out of the apartment just in time to hear raised voices. She didn't understand everything, just enough. She saw her mother's back turned to Andrew. She saw the look on his face, hurt, confused, maybe even sorry. Emma hugged the hope doll tighter against her chest. Was this what happened when you asked for too much? Was this what happened when wishes got in the way? She tiptoed back inside, quiet as a whisper, and crawled under her blanket without a sound. Later that night, Rachel returned, eyes red, body tense. She bent to kiss Emma goodnight, but paused when she saw a folded piece of paper tucked beneath her pillow. In crayon, written carefully in a child's hand, were the words, "Mom, maybe wishes do work, but only if we don't push them away." Rachel stood frozen. She pressed the note to her chest, and in the stillness of that cold winter night, a tear rolled down her cheek, not of defeat, but of fear. Fear that in protecting herself, she might have broken something far more fragile than pride. She might have broken belief. Andrew had always prided himself on being a man of action. Problems were meant to be solved, efficiently, quietly, without emotion. But after that night with Rachel, standing in his hallway, watching her walk away, he felt something he hadn't in years. Helpless. He hadn't meant to overstep. He thought he was doing the right thing, but Rachel hadn't wanted to be rescued. She wanted to be seen, as capable, as worthy. Not as someone helped out of pity, but as someone who deserved the chance to stand on her own. That night taught him something he hadn't understood until then. Helping wasn't always about fixing. Sometimes it was simply about believing. So, he stepped back, but he didn't vanish. A few days later, the Carter Toys headquarters was transformed. Evergreen garlands wrapped around ceiling beams, ornaments hung like tiny stars. Staff moved quickly, arranging trays of cookies and gift boxes. In the center stood a modest stage, framed with warm string lights, under a banner that read, "Christmas of Hope," a celebration of new beginnings. It wasn't just a party. It was a night for families who had been quietly struggling, parents working 2 jobs, children who'd never had a wrapped gift, single mothers holding everything together with threadbare strength. Backstage, Andrew adjusted his cuffs, took a deep breath, and reached into his pocket. Inside was the envelope he had been holding all day. When his name was called, he stepped out to soft applause and into the glow of holiday lights. The room quieted as he approached the podium. 3 years ago, he began, I stopped believing in Christmas. He scanned the crowd. Near the back, he saw her, Rachel, coat still on, standing silently. Emma clung to her hand. Lucas stood nearby, waving at Emma with a grin. I lost someone, Andrew continued, and I thought the only way to survive was to stop feeling, stop hoping. But then I met a little girl who reminded me that not all wishes are made out loud. Some are whispered, some are carried, and some are lived every day by people who never stop trying. He paused, swallowing the lump rising in his throat. So, tonight, he said, I'm proud to announce something close to my heart. Behind him, a screen lit up with bold words. The Hope Scholarship. It's for mothers, he explained, who once dreamed of becoming nurses, healers, caretakers. but had to give up those dreams to survive. This scholarship will give them a second chance, education, job placement, and the support they've always deserved. Because when you invest in someone's future, the entire world benefits. A gentle murmur moved through the crowd. Rachel didn't move. Andrew continued, more quietly now. There's a woman I know who worked 2 jobs, raised a child alone, and still found ways to smile. Not because she had help, but because she never stopped believing her child deserved more. She didn't need to be saved. She just needed someone to believe she belonged. Rachel's eyes brimmed with tears. He hadn't said her name. He didn't have to. Across the room, heads turned toward her. Emma gripped her hand tighter. Lucas nudged her, whispering something that made her smile through the tears. Then Rachel saw it. A large board titled Wall of Inspiration. At the center, a photo, one she hadn't seen in years, her in a white student nurse uniform, hair tied neatly, eyes full of hope. Beneath it, in gold lettering, some wishes are silent. Some become someone's mission. Rachel's hand flew to her mouth. Emotion overtook her. Emma released her hand, ran to her, and hugged her tight. Lucas joined them, his arms around them both. Then Andrew stepped down from the stage and made his way slowly to where they stood. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He reached into his coat and held out the envelope. With trembling hands, Rachel opened it. Inside was an official letter from East Pines Medical, a full-time offer, and confirmation that she had been awarded the Hope Scholarship to continue her training. She looked up at Andrew. For the first time, no walls stood between them. Only understanding, and something deeper. Their eyes met. No words were needed. Because sometimes, the strongest belief is the one we show without ever speaking. Snow was falling gently outside the window of the small clinic as Rachel hung up her new ID badge on its hook. It still felt surreal, even weeks later. Rachel Taylor, medical assistant, full-time. Not a temp, not a favor, not a question mark. Her name was now spoken with respect, not whispers. The nurses invited her to join lunch breaks. The doctors trusted her input. She wasn't seen as someone who knew the CEO, but as someone who had earned her place through knowledge, humility, and quiet strength. Her evening scholarship courses had begun, and she cherished every moment. Her notes were color-coded, her textbooks full of tabs. It had been a long time since she dared to dream again, but she was finally doing it. And Emma glowed. She and Lucas were inseparable. From morning bus rides to after-school crafts, they moved like 2 pieces of the same story. They made Christmas cards, cut paper snowflakes, and wrote letters to Santa, even though Emma now understood that not all wishes needed chimneys to come true. On Christmas Eve, a soft knock came at Rachel's door. Andrew stood there, smiling gently, a scarf wrapped around his neck, cheeks pink from the cold. "You still planning to stay in tonight?" he asked. Rachel raised a brow. "Why?" He held up 2 handmade tickets, glitter and crayon scribbles across the front. Admit 1, Carter Family Christmas, featuring cookies, cocoa, and the world's smallest snowman. Rachel laughed. "World's smallest, huh?" "He's made of paper," Andrew replied. "Very advanced engineering." That night, Rachel and Emma stepped into Andrew's home for the first time as something more than guests. The living room was warm and inviting, golden lights strung across the tree, a fire crackling softly in the hearth. The scent of cinnamon and pine filled the air. Lucas and Emma ran toward each other, holding hands and showing off their newest creation, a snowman made of cotton balls, buttons, and a twist of red yarn. They named him Wishy. The dining table was set for 4, simple but thoughtful: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, gingerbread cookies, and steaming mugs of cocoa with marshmallows slowly melting on top. Rachel wore a modest red knit dress, her blonde hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She looked around the room, taking it all in: the warmth, the laughter, the unexpected peace. Andrew couldn't take his eyes off her. "You look," he started, then cleared his throat. "Like Christmas showed up and forgot to knock." Rachel blushed, but smiled, genuine and unguarded. After dinner, the four of them gathered near the fireplace. Tree lights flickered, casting soft shadows. Emma and Lucas sat on the floor, each hugging their hope dolls like treasured old friends. Rachel leaned back on the couch, Andrew beside her. They both stared into the fire for a long moment, words unnecessary. Then, slowly, Andrew reached over, his fingers brushing the back of her hand. Rachel didn't pull away. Instead, she laced her fingers into his. No grand speeches, no promises, just a quiet connection between two people who had been broken and found something whole together. On the rug, Emma looked up at the glowing tree, the lights reflected in her wide eyes. She turned to her mother and whispered, "Mom, my wish worked. You smiled. And now, we're home." Rachel looked down at her daughter, eyes misty, but this time not from sadness, from gratitude. Outside, snow continued to fall, covering the quiet street in a soft white hush. And if this were a movie, the camera would slowly pull back, through the glowing window, past the twinkling lights and flickering fire, until the house stood like a lantern in the winter dark. A small, imperfect house. But inside, a perfect moment, where wishes had come true, where hope had taken root, and where, at last, four hearts had found their way home. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit that hype button and subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for more heartwarming tales that remind us of the power of kindness, love, and second chances. Every week, we bring you stories that heal, inspire, and stay with you long after they end. Let's keep spreading hope, one story at a time. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the smallest wishes lead to the biggest miracles. Subscribe now and help us grow this community of compassion.